Hey GBA fans, it's your friend Choice CJ here, and welcome to my battle for Week 3 of D-League Season Number 4. We are going up against It's Turbo, coach of the Phoenix Midnights. We did have a team builder discussing the matchup and the team that I brought for this battle, but in case you missed it, let me quickly blow through my team. I have a 3 attacks Roost Mega Latios with max special attack. I have a Shukaberry 4 attacks Terrakion. I have a Choice Scarf Darmanitan, a Stealth Rock Sludge Wave, Rindo Berry, Swampert. I have a Life Orb Roserade with Sleep Powder, and I have a Magnet Rise Recycle Klefki. So Turbo has brought Masquerain, Azumarill, Jirachi, Mega Aerodactyl, Raichu, and Emboar. So a lot of the things on his team make sense. Jirachi and Azu are both pretty reasonable checks to Latios. Emboar is the only Pokemon that he has that really threatens Klefki. And other mons like Masquerain can potentially be annoying for my team if it gets up webs. And Arrow just outspeeds all of my team. It can run Adamant Nature, and actually run Adamant Nature with a lot of bulk investment, which is quite a problem. So my strategy here is improved by the fact that he didn't bring some key threats. So there's no Kyurem, first of all. So Klefki is immediately relieved to not see that. Basically, I can play a little bit more aggressively with my Klefki. I don't need to keep it in the back to protect myself from Scarf Outrage or Scarf Dragon Claw or whatever. He doesn't have Persian, which is really nice. The combination of like Taunt plus Foul Play plus Parting Shot was extremely annoying for my team. And Knockoff in particular could have been extremely annoying because if he knocks off the berry on my Klefki, I can no longer recycle versus the majority of his team. Because, once you get your item knocked off, you can't recycle it back. That's not quite how it works. You need to, you can only recycle it if you consume it, if that makes sense. So those two mons not being present is a very, very big relief. There are some other mons that he didn't bring, but I don't remember them off the top of my head, so you'll have to bear with me. So with that in mind, I just basically need to be cognizant of not getting swept by Aerodactyl. I need to figure out good ways to break through some of his bulky mons. Like, I am expecting an Assault Vest Azu and potentially a bulky Jirachi. Jirachi could also be, like, Scarf or something, I guess. Because, Scarf Jirachi does outspeed the majority of my team. There's only 3 members that it wouldn't outspeed. Or I guess 2 members. Like, if I have a Scarf Terrakion or a Scarf Raikou, Jirachi would not outspeed that. But it outspeeds everything else. It does not outspeed a +1 Dragon Dance Lottie, I suppose. But maybe he's running, like, a Shukaberry or something like that for Lottie. So I don't know. Jirachi could be a couple different things. It could be fast or it could be bulky. We'll have to see. But let's just not waste any more time and just hop on into this battle. And good luck. Have fun, Turbo. He could lead with a couple of different things, but probably most likely is Masquerain. And so maybe I could have led differently here, but I did choose to lead my Latios just because getting the Mega Evolution off gets me my extra bulk, and it also immediately applies pressure to his whole team. And even if he does lead Masquerain, I figure he will want to set up sticky webs as soon as possible. And so I still have the opportunity to two-shot it without potentially threatening my Lottie's HP. If he does want to go for Bug Buzz, that would stink, but that means that he has to sack his Masquerain without getting up webs. Webs is pretty detrimental to my team, except for Lottie, but like Terrakion, Roserade, and things like that all really need the max amount of speed that they can get. Turbo sort of throws me a curveball and goes for Quiver Dance. And so I definitely don't want to, risk this thing going for Bug Buzz versus my Lottie. So I feel okay going into Klefki here. There's not really a move that he can run that would be super threatening to me, especially because I am expecting most likely Focus Sash. He does crit me with Bug Buzz, which is pretty funny. He gets a Spadef drop, which is pretty annoying too. Here in this situation, I go for Magnet Rise because I actually thought this Masquerain was his Z-move user. That was my mistake. It's actually Raichu. As dumb as it sounds, Z Mud Shot actually would have been really bad in that situation because he could have taken me out with the Tectonic Rage. But again, he ended up not having that, so that's my mistake that I even went for that. But he gets his webs up. I take the opportunity to immediately defog, and he goes for Pump, and unfortunately misses for him. With a Spadef drop and his +1 boost, Hydro Pump would have done a lot of damage in that situation. But now I can just go ahead and I can finish it off with a Flash Cannon. So this thing is down, and I haven't taken a ton of damage on my team, but he does have up webs, which is definitely scary. And now he comes in with his Emboar, and like this thing potentially abusing webs is just so frightening to me. So my best check to this thing besides Lottie is my Swampert. Because Kyurem's not there, I can potentially use Klefki more as the arrow counter, and I can use Swampert as my switch into Emboar instead of something like Mega Latios, which doesn't really take a banded Flare Blitz all that well. But it turns out he's actually a special set. He goes for Burn Up, and this set, let me tell you, this was a masterfully crafted set. As soon as I saw the Burn Up, I was expecting the Grass Knot, so I'm like, okay, he's a special variant. Let me go for the Earthquake. And I knew the side effect of Burn Up where you can't use it when you lose your fire typing again, but it didn't click in my head that because he loses his fire typing, he's not hit by any of my stab moves. So I go for this Earthquake expecting to get off like 90% damage. Instead it does like 40%. So that really stinks. My Swampert goes down. And then in this situation I go into my Klefki and I go, okay, he already showed the Burn Up. He lost his fire typing. He can't hit me with Burn Up. So let me go into my Klefki and get away these webs as he switches out. But, of course, Turbo is a very smart man and prepped really well and put double fire moves on this thing. So I am able to successfully get away the hazards, but it's at the cost of my Klefki. So both my Swampert and my Klefki are down. And so I have no defensive checks for Aerodactyl anymore. So this game, like, it's looking really scary at this point. And I got really greedy with my Klefki. I don't think it was necessarily a bad play, but it was greedy. I should have just gone into my Latios just as I did now, because I can threaten basically anything that comes in. He doesn't have any switch-ins. Like, yes, he has this Rachi, which takes pretty little from my Psyshock, and that pretty much reveals that it's at least max HP. I do go for a Shadow Ball, though, and I do like 60% as he clicks rocks. And so that's, reveals that he's not Spadef. And the fact that he's Stealth Rock, kind of limits the options that he could have in terms of moveset. Like, he can't have Calm Mind and Thunder Wave and U-Turn and all these other things if he's also Stealth Rock. So I go for Shadow Ball again as he goes into his Azu. This is definitely AV based on that damage. It did maybe 20%. And so that makes it pretty certain that this thing is AV. I go into my Roserade, hoping that he clicks Play Rough. But, he very smartly goes for Ice Punch. I don't even know if he had Play Rough on his set, but if he did, Ice Punch was a really smart mid-round play. And so I lose my Roserade, which is my best way to threaten this Azu. And it would have been really nice as well. Like, if I sacked something different than Roserade, I could go into it, after the death, and then I click Sleep Powder, and, he would probably want to preserve this Azu, because it's his best way of dealing with the Lottie, now that Jirachi is so weakened. And so he would switch into something else, and I'd be able to put that thing to sleep, which would be extremely, extremely nice. But instead, I'm forced to go into my Terrakion, go for Poison Jab just to get off the maximum amount of damage that I can. And I get the Poison, which is great, but I just barely miss out on the KO. I go into my Lottie, and he does end up going for Aqua Jet just for as much chip as possible. I guess a heads-up play on my part would have been clicking Roost in this situation, but I didn't feel it was worth the risk in case he did go for Ice Punch or Play Rough. Because I wanted to have some HP instead of being totally dead. Now he can go into his Mega Arrow, and I do have a potential win con. It depends on the spread on this Aerodactyl, and it also depends on the spread on the Emboar. I do still have my Scarf Darm in the back, and so I just need to put this arrow in range of Flare Blitz, and then either hope that it's a weird minus defense natured Emboar or something like that, or more likely that I get a crit on the Emboar, and then I can potentially sweep with a Scarf EQ, or sorry, not Scarf EQ, Scarf Flare Blitz. But I go for the Psyshock just because I want the guaranteed damage, because I think that I can put it in range, but this turns out to be an almost max HP Aerodactyl, and so Psyshock doesn't really put it in the range I want it to be in for this Flare Blitz. So the only way that I can KO this Aerodactyl right now is with a practically max roll. So I do click Flare Blitz as my only play, and I actually do get that roll. It's not even a crit or anything, so we get off pretty good damage there, and again, now he can go into his Emboar, depending upon the spread. We shouldn't be able to crit on almost any situation, unless, like I said, he's some sort of weird minus defense nature. But if we do crit, we actually have a path to victory. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen. We get the Emboar to maybe 10% or so, and I was informed by Turbo that he was with a maxed roll, he was going to live on like 3 HP, worst case scenario. So he isn't going to be able to take me out with a Scald after that, and that's going to be GG Turbo. Really fast one. It's really crazy. I don't think I've had a match this short since I started doing Wi-Fi battles frequently back in like January, February, back with P4G Next Generation. But props to Turbo. His prep was on point. Like, I don't think I played up to the level that I did in the first 2 weeks, but that Masquerade up at the start it put me not on tilt, but it kind of put me on edge. And so I wasn't making the optimal plays necessarily, and like his team was built to take advantage of that, particularly with that Embor set. My most likely switch-ins to Embor being my Swampert and my Suicune, which I left on the bench, couldn't really touch Embor after it went for burn up, because it took away its fire typing, which is what my water types would exploit. And then again, there's a big misplay there with the Klefki trying to get away the webs versus the Embor. The webs at that point weren't super high priority for me, because the things on my team, except for Scarfdar Manitan, like Roserade and Terrakion, for example, they were both already outsped by Arrow and Raichu. So even if I took the -1 drop in speed, it wasn't that huge of a deal. It's just a bigger deal versus like the Azu and the Jirachi. But like Terrakion and Roserade don't really do anything, don't do too much versus versus Azu or Jirachi anyway. So I got a little bit, like, I sort of focused on the webs more than I think I needed to. I needed to get them away eventually, I just didn't need to get them away immediately. And so doing that, like, I threw away my Klefki, and I thought that, going into Klefki wasn't even that huge of a risk. That turned out to be false. He had the double fire coverage. And the consequence of that is that he didn't have anything to hit Lottie. I thought maybe he'd be running, like, Sucker Punch or something to hit Lottie for at least some damage. But he had double fire, Grass Knot, Scald. I don't think that's a bad set to run. I think it's perfectly fine to do that. It's just sort of, you have to guess, right? Like, what is his last move? And the safer thing would have been to go to Lottie. So that was a misplay on my part. But again, it's just, the misplays were fueled by the sets that Turbo designed. And so I want to give a big tip of the hat to him for coming up with that. I know he has some folks that help him team build, and they come up with these sorts of sets from time to time. So, tip of the hat to him. And that is going to mean a 3-0 loss for us. And I'm lucky, frankly, that it was even that close. It could have been much more one-sided when I threw away my Swampert and my Klefki. Because, like I said, I had no way of dealing with Arrow at that point. I couldn't Oko it with my Lottie. He could potentially Oko me with a move. We were lucky that we survived the Ice Fang in that situation. He wasn't actually max attack because he was max HP instead. I think Turbo's going places this season. He's now 2-1. He barely lost in his Week 1 match versus Deebs, and that was a horrible matchup for him. So he's a contender, no doubt. And I still think that we're a contender as well. But if we're going to, if we want to keep that mantle of contender, we're going to have to turn it up to 11 next week versus Melantosh, coach of the Exeter Chief Electivires. And he's got a scary Sun team featuring other threats like Gengar and Zygarde 50 and things like that, in addition to his Sun core built around Megazord Y. So I'm hoping that we can turn it around, and I hope you guys do tune in for that, because we are going to be giving it our all. And if that's the kind of thing that you'd like to see, make sure you leave a like on this video. Make sure you drop a sub so you can stay up to date on all of the weekly action. And make sure you check out my pal Turbo and all the other D-League coaches as well, because we're cranking out great games week after week after week. There's a really nice match this week going on between the top 2 teams in power rankings, Leo and Zazo. So I'm sure you guys want to see that. There's all other great action going on too. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure you check back to the channel for other gaming and Pokemon content. Until the next time, I'll see you guys later.